The build-up to the final showdown, Tyson's struggles, and McBride's rise. In the years leading up to June 11, 2005, Mike Tyson's career had been a series of highs and lows, largely defined by his once unbeatable power, his tumultuous personal life, and a string of disappointing losses. Tyson, once the youngest heavyweight champion in history, had become a cautionary tale. His reputation as an uncontrollable force inside the ring had been replaced by a series of devastating defeats, controversial moments, and public struggles. By 2005, Tyson's career was already in decline. He had faced multiple defeats, most notably the losses to Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. His lack of focus and discipline, combined with his personal turmoil, made many question whether Tyson had the mental fortitude to continue fighting. His physical prowess, which had once struck fear into opponents, had diminished, and his performances in the ring were no longer the stuff of legends. On the other side of the ring stood Kevin McBride, an unheralded Irish heavyweight who had been working his way up the ranks. McBride's most notable victory had been against the aging and vulnerable former champion, Iron Mike Tyson. While McBride wasn't seen as a formidable threat compared to Tyson's former opponents, he possessed the size, strength, and resilience to stand up to the fading Tyson. His career had been marked by hard work, but he was largely considered an underdog, largely unknown to mainstream boxing fans. The fight was billed as a final attempt at redemption for Tyson, who was now seen as a shadow of his former self. For McBride, this was his opportunity to make a name for himself, stepping into the spotlight as he faced one of the most famous boxers in history. But few could have predicted that the fight would be one of the most anticlimactic moments in boxing history, an ending not just to a match, but to an era. Tyson's mental and physical state, the road to the fight. Tyson's mental and physical state leading into the McBride fight was a topic of much discussion. Tyson, once a fighter known for his ferocity and unwavering determination, had become a shell of himself. His time outside the ring had been marked by numerous personal issues, including legal troubles, financial instability, and public scandals. These distractions had taken a significant toll on his focus and dedication to the sport of boxing. Tyson's training camp for the McBride fight was far from ideal. Tyson had struggled to maintain discipline during his preparations. While he was still a powerful fighter with raw potential, his commitment to training had waned. Reports surfaced that Tyson's weight fluctuated significantly in the months leading up to the fight, and his camp lacked the sharp focus it once had in his prime. Though Tyson had an extensive boxing background and the tools to succeed, his heart was no longer in the sport. In contrast, McBride approached the fight with determination. His camp was structured, and he was fully aware that a victory over Tyson would catapult him into the spotlight. While McBride lacked Tyson's raw power and speed, he was focused on his strategy and conditioning. He knew that his chances of success against Tyson were slim unless he could capitalize on Tyson's declining physical state and mental vulnerability. The contrast between Tyson's mental and physical struggles and McBride's calm determination only added intrigue to the fight. Fans and pundits alike wondered whether Tyson could summon the strength of his former self, or whether McBride could pull off a shocking victory against a fighter who had once been invincible. The first few rounds, Tyson's early efforts, and McBride's resilience. As the fight began on June 11, 2005, the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. Tyson entered the ring with his usual intensity, but it was evident from the opening bell that something was off. While Tyson was still capable of landing powerful punches, his movements lacked the fluidity and precision of his prime years. His jab, once a weapon that opened up devastating combinations, seemed to lack the same sting. McBride, on the other hand, appeared calm and composed. He weathered Tyson's early onslaughts and didn't seem overwhelmed by Tyson's reputation. As the first few rounds progressed, McBride absorbed Tyson's punches and continued to move forward, showing the resilience that would ultimately define the fight. Tyson's blows still had force, but McBride was able to stay in the pocket and trade with the former champion. As the fight began on June 11, 2005, the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. Tyson entered the ring with his usual intensity, but it was evident from the opening bell that something was off. While Tyson was still capable of landing powerful punches, his movements lacked the fluidity and precision of his prime years. His jab, once a weapon that opened up devastating combinations, seemed to lack the same sting. McBride, on the other hand, appeared calm and composed. He weathered Tyson's early onslaughts and didn't seem overwhelmed by Tyson's reputation. As the first few rounds progressed, McBride absorbed Tyson's punches and continued to move forward, showing the resilience that would ultimately define the fight. Tyson's blows still had force, but McBride was able to stay in the pocket and trade with the former champion. By the third round, it was clear that Tyson was not the same fighter who had once demolished opponents in the early rounds. He seemed tired, sluggish, and uninterested. His punches lacked accuracy, and his footwork had become labored. McBride, while not an elite boxer, was proving to be a durable and resilient opponent, something Tyson's previous challengers often failed to be. Tyson's frustration grew as McBride took his punches and continued to fight back. By the end of round 3, the fight was starting to look less like a Tyson victory and more like an uncomfortable struggle for the former champion. Crowd, once roaring with excitement, began to sense that this fight could take an unexpected turn. The breaking point: Tyson's struggles in the middle rounds. As the fight progressed into the middle rounds, Tyson's performance continued to deteriorate. His punches lacked the same snap they once had, and his stamina appeared to be an issue. McBride, though not a particularly fast or skilled fighter, had become a tough and durable opponent. His persistence wore on Tyson, who seemed mentally and physically exhausted. In round 5 and round 6, Tyson's fatigue became more apparent. His punches became slower and more ragged, and his breathing was labored. He began to show signs of mental exhaustion as well. Tyson, known for his intense focus and aggression, seemed to have lost his spark. Every time McBride landed a punch or withstood Tyson's attack, it seemed to chip away at Tyson's resolve. The crowd began to murmur as Tyson struggled to find his rhythm. McBride, while not landing any truly devastating punches, was consistent. He continued to move forward and push Tyson into uncomfortable situations. By the end of round 6, Tyson's body language suggested that he was on the verge of quitting. His head hung low, and he appeared to be questioning whether he had the energy and determination to continue. Tyson's body may have been showing the signs of wear, but it was his mind that seemed to falter the most. His inability to overcome the pressure from McBride revealed a crucial shift. Tyson no longer had the will to fight. The champion who had once destroyed opponents with ease was now struggling against a lesser-known challenger. The psychological battle was as evident as the physical one. Round 7, Tyson quits on his stool. At the start of round 7, something unprecedented happened. Tyson, whose career had been marked by explosive finishes, shocking upsets, and tragic downfalls, walked away from the fight. In a moment that shocked the boxing world, Tyson refused to continue after the 6th round. He sat on his stool and told his corner that he was done. His withdrawal from the fight wasn't due to injury, but to a combination of mental and physical exhaustion. Tyson's decision to quit on his stool sparked immediate controversy. Fans who had paid to see a fight were left disappointed, and boxing analysts quickly weighed in. Tyson's exit in the fight tarnished his legacy for many fans who saw his decision as a sign of a fighter who had lost his heart. While Tyson had long been associated with mental instability and emotional struggles, many believed that he had still possessed the fire to compete at the highest levels. His quitting on that fateful night, however, was the final indication that Tyson had lost not just his physical abilities, but his will to fight. Some critics argued that Tyson's decline was inevitable, given his lack of focus in training and the personal issues that had plagued him. Others, however, saw it as a heartbreaking end to the career of one of the most talented fighters ever to step into the ring. Tyson's decision to quit was seen by some as a brave admission of his limitations, while others viewed it as the ultimate betrayal to the fans who had supported him throughout his career. The fallout, Tyson's legacy, and the end of an era. In the aftermath of the fight, Tyson's decision to quit reverberated throughout the boxing world. The fight had been billed as the final chapter in Tyson's career, but instead of a triumphant return to form or a graceful retirement, Tyson's last bout had been a sobering spectacle. His career, which had once been filled with promise, was now defined by chaos, self-doubt, and a lack of discipline. Boxing fans were left with mixed feelings. For some, Tyson's decision to quit was a painful reminder of what could have been. Tyson had been a once-in-a-lifetime talent, a fighter whose power and speed were unmatched in his prime. But his fall from grace was equally swift. The quitting of the McBride fight served as a final, tragic chapter in the story of a boxer who had been a symbol of greatness, but whose personal demons had led him to self-destruct. For others, Tyson's loss and his decision to quit were simply the inevitable result of a career built on unstable foundations. Tyson had never truly dealt with his emotional and psychological struggles, and they had caught up with him in the ring. His inability to finish the fight against McBride was seen by some as a fitting end to a career marked by volatility, brilliance, and heartbreak. In the years following the fight, Tyson would continue to make headlines for his personal struggles, but his boxing career was effectively over. The McBride fight had marked the final moment of his professional journey, and it left a lasting impact on the sport. Tyson's legacy, once defined by dominance and invincibility, would forever be remembered as a story of promise, decline, and the harsh realities of mental and physical exhaustion. Reflections on Tyson's career, a legacy shaped by triumphs and tragedies. In the wake of the McBride fight, Tyson's legacy was the subject of intense debate. While Tyson had been one of the most destructive forces in boxing history, his career had also been marred by personal and professional difficulties. His rise to the top of the sport was meteoric, but his fall from grace was equally swift. The McBride fight, in which Tyson quit on his stool, seemed to encapsulate the entirety of his troubled career. Tyson's legacy was shaped by his many triumphs, but it was also defined by his struggles. His dominance in the ring had been unmatched at one point, but his inability to maintain discipline and focus led to his downfall. The McBride fight symbolized the end of an era in boxing, marking the final chapter of a boxer who had once been one of the most feared fighters in history. Ultimately, Tyson's story is one of both triumph and tragedy. His brilliance inside the ring was undeniable, but his inability to manage his personal demons ultimately led to his decline. The McBride fight was a fitting end to a career that had been full of promise, but also marked by deep struggles and controversy. Tyson may have quit on his stool, but his legacy as one of boxing's most complex figures remains undeniable.